Sarah. I'm the owner of New Earth Cafe in Coolum Beach with my husband Ben, and I found out about breathwork through pure chance. Well, there's nothing's left up to chance, but Bassam walked in one day and I was just chopping veggies and I looked up and I was like, he looks really interesting. I need to ask him a few questions, and that's truly what I did. And I just was like, what are you doing? Where are you from? What do you do here? And Bassam didn't want to answer any of those. He just wanted to know what to have for lunch, and so he chose his lunch, and then I was like, I'm bringing his lunch out and I'm going to ask him what he does again. And so I brought his lunch out, and then I was like, what do you do? And then he sort of, 10 minutes of pestering, he started to explain that he was a breath worker and that he rebirthed people. And I was very intrigued because I teach yoga and I've done lots of different modalities of healing, and I'd never heard of it before. So I was really interested, and he was going the next day. So I really wanted to know what it was, and I managed to organise a group of 10 people that evening at our studio, New Earth Meta, and Bassam rebirthed us, and the journey really started there. It was very profound, amazing, deep experience for myself and everyone else there that was involved. And I was just like, oh my God, everyone needs to do this. So probably 3 or 4 weeks later, Bassam came back and I had quite a lot of people. I think we've rebirthed 200-300 people now here at the studio. A lot of our customers or friends, or a lot of my yoga students, and word of mouth really travels. So we have a lot of rebirthed people here on the Sunshine Coast.
And it's really amazing. Really, when you really think about it, it's amazing. You have been an instigator for such an incredible community healing and community bringing together, and that's what you represent. That's what your cafe represents, and that's what people really need to know. And it's wonderful to have this opportunity to to do what you love to do, and that's what you're so passionate about, what you do, and to embrace rebirthing the way you have, because that first session for you was quite profound, and the carry through was quite strong. But it's not like every session for you was quite profound, but that first session was the clincher, wasn't it? You want to tell me a little bit about, or tell us about a little bit about your first rebirthing session?
So the first session, I'll be really honest, I was lying there and I'm like, oh my God, I hope this is good. I've made everyone pay this money and they've all come because I, said they should, and I don't really know how a breathing technique's going to make me experience anything because I've tried it all before. So I'm just lying there going, oh fuck, this is just a breathing technique, and next minute I'm on this roller coaster 2-hour journey. So very surprising for myself. I don't really believe anything unless I see it and it happens to me, and I won't recommend anything unless I've had a good experience. So it was a really amazing experience, and I felt my whole birth, and I was lucky I went through the whole birth in the one session, which I was really glad, because at the start it was quite painful and I cried a lot and I felt a lot of emotions and anger, and it ended really blissfully. So that made me want to come back, because I think if it hadn't ended blissfully, well, I would have given it another thought, because as I was going through it, I was like, I don't actually want to be experiencing all of this. I had a lot of tetany and tightening and stiffness and coughing and choking, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and frustration, and I was just like, oh, I want to sit up and stop, and then I sort of couldn't move either, so I couldn't really get out of it, and then it would just pass quite quickly, and then I'd feel okay again, and it would just come back. So it was just waves and waves of releasing and feeling of different emotions that would pass very quickly and release, and then at the end it was very blissful. I had an out-of-body experience, which I've never actually really had ever before in my 34 years. I talk a lot about the soul and things like that, but I never had my own experience of my soul actually being separate from my body. and that was really sort of very rewarding in a way. I felt like I do believe the right things. I am saying the right things. This does really happen. And I know it does for sure now. So that was really cool. Feeling that sense of peace and stillness and joy and happiness, and knowing that I did choose to come into my body and I did choose to have these experiences. And it's very empowering experience to have, and to finish so blissed out. And just, I think I was on a high for about 10 days. So every single person that came into the cafe got the whole rebirth talk. So I had people lining up to be rebirthed after that.
It's amazing, isn't it, to think that just our own breath has the capacity to catch us by surprise. If it can catch us by surprise, it just unlocks so much that's hiding in there. So it's really rewarding and inspiring to hear that. And then at the end, what was your impressions also when you were hearing the others talk? Because everyone seems to be having these extraordinary experiences.
Yeah, so every single person, I feel like when I started crying in the room, it gave a lot of people the permission to cry, almost, because I'm always quite a strong person. And a lot of people said, whoa, when you started crying, I just let go and started crying as well. And then, everyone had their own experiences. Some people probably had much less traumatic birth, and some people had much more traumatic. So everyone's was very different, but then also very similar. And I think the group rebirths are very beneficial. Like having one on your own as well, amazing, but can move through your feelings instead of sitting in them. And since I think I've done 12 or 13 rebirths now, so the first one was definitely for me the most life-changing, and I think it was because the breath caught me by surprise, and I know that my mind likes to control all situations, so a lot of them after that have been quite hard for me, because I just sit in doubt or anger or rage, or I tend to knock myself out. Like I think Bassam probably finds it quite hard to keep me awake all the time, because I'm not even tired and I lie down and then I'm just asleep, and I think that's just me avoiding and not
inevitable.
Yeah, and I'm not going to stop doing rebirths. I'm just going to keep going, and I'm quite stubborn, so I can understand why they're taking so long. Sometimes people have 5 and they're all so amazing and so transforming and life-changing. Maybe that to finish, so I think rebirthing, I'm a health coach and I help a lot of people with their health, and you can have the right food and you can have the right water, and you can do coffee enemas, which are amazing, but rebirthing is really another tool to empty out the shit pretty quickly. I've been helping people for 2 years sometimes, and they'll come to some rebirths and the changes are just so profound and so amazing for them. Because they are able to let go of, years and years of trauma, like 10 years of going to a counsellor or a psychologist, or going and getting counselling every week, and it's just like, you don't need to do that. You can just use your own breath and you can release it and let go of it and get the most amazing healings. And then you can implement all these other things. But sometimes with people, I find there's a real block because of a trauma or an abuse or something that's happened to them as a child, and they don't even really know it's there anymore. And then so that can really bring it up to the surface, and they just feel it for a moment and it passes, and it's like it's left the body forever. And so you can see really deep shifts and changes, even in myself. The way I used to be 6 months ago is just so completely different to how I am now, and I've still got a lot to change, but it's a tool that can help you to shift, and you don't even really need to know what to do. You can just breathe, and then next minute it's just doing it all for you. So that's a really, I think everyone should do rebirthing. Everyone should definitely do 10 sessions, because even after 12 or 13 sessions I still see people releasing, and I feel like I've released a lot and I've moved forward a lot, and I've had a lot of benefits, but I've also sat in a lot of shitty moments. But I find every time I do another rebirth, it shifts me, and I do feel better after it, even if at the moment I don't feel so good. So
and parents to be,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like if you're going to have children, why not give them, the best start that you possibly can? I counsel and coach mums and how to eat right and how to drink the right water when they're wanting to have children. I've had women who couldn't get pregnant for 6 years who come and, start to eat clean. But what if your emotions and all your trauma was clean as well? What if the body that you were, cultivating this child in had no trauma and had no energetic just crap all stored up in there that the poor baby then has to absorb, and so definitely if you can do rebirthing before you have a child, that's amazing. What a gift to give your child.